Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sara Lihz and today I have a super fun, super cute Valentine's globe. We are going to use the Be Mine stamp set and coordinating pixie cuts. I already colored these and cut them out because I'm a very slow colorist, but they were super quick and easy. And then this is the snow globe die. He's one of my favorite pixie dust dies of all times. And then I'm also pulling in the Clouds and Grass Slimline dies. So I cut the clouds out of just like a scrap of glitter cardstock. It's such a wonky shape, but it doesn't really matter. I just need enough to peek down from the top of my snow globe. And I'm just kind of holding it up to the piece that fits around the frame of the globe itself. And I'm trimming around it. It does not have to be pretty. That is going to be hidden, not hard at all. Then I cut a scrap that's a little over an inch using the grass die. And I'm going to do the same with that. We're going to put that frame on there with some foam tape and acetate to make a shaker out of this. So I really just want to trim off enough that the edges are going to tuck behind that frame, kind of under that foam tape. One of my tricks when I'm putting together a snow globe, I have all these things inside my shaker, is to take my finger along the edges with my wet glue and to smear it so it reaches the very edge of that die cut piece. That way, my shaker bits are far less likely to get stuck and caught underneath those pieces, especially with something like that grass. I don't have time to sit there and try to get my glue onto every little tiny blade of grass, so I just use my finger. Once I get those in there, I am going to put that frame on top of the globe before I add my two little penguins. I love that he's got this like little stethoscope and then you've got the heartbeat going in between the two of them. I want to make sure that when I put these critters in there, since they're the focal point of my snow globe, that they're going to be in the right place and nothing is going to get covered up by the frame of that globe. I did check sort of both of my sets of critters. I'm making a second one of these. I think they're going to be Valentines for my sons this year. They both love cute little critters. So I thought that was fun. So I took the die that cuts out the entire globe and I cut really just a chunk from the bottom. I want a base for my globe. So I am lining up that frame from the top, drawing a pencil line, and then I'm going to trim around that. It does not have to be perfect. There's another piece that goes on top of here that will hide anything where maybe I cut a little further than that join line. I'm going to add this to a piece of acetate. Again, I use the same die that cuts out the entire snow globe, and I'm adding the frame to the top portion, and then I'll add this little teal piece down on the bottom. You wouldn't necessarily need to trim as much as I did. Part of it could be hidden by that pink frame, but I like it better this way. I feel like the cardstock looks a little more even. These two pieces go right underneath the frame and then down at the very bottom, and I've just cut them from some matte silver foil cardstock. And that adds, I think, a lovely accent. If you wanted to stamp directly onto the base, I might do that before I started assembling everything. I've done it before where I waited and then the stamping wasn't quite perfect and I felt like I didn't want to fix it because I didn't want to start over. So I would stamp certainly before I started assembling everything. To make room for my shaker bits, I am adding foam tape all around the outside of the globe, and I have removed the release paper from both sides so that it's easier to curve, and then I just use that same tape down at the bottom. Inside my shaker, I have added some love heart sequins that I've had in my stash for about 10 years. And then just some really chunky glitter. I felt like the hearts were big enough. I didn't want them to cover up my penguins too much. So that gives me a nice mix of sizes. I added a little bit of wet glue on my foam tape. It's super sticky and I wanted to make sure I had wiggle room and I could move it if I needed to. And then I laid it down on top of the base. I started with the bottom left corner and that worked out nicely. I'm going to make a little sentiment heart. This comes from that same die set and says, I love you. And I've already cut my heart out of some red cardstock and then just from a piece of like printer paper. And I stamped onto that cream scrap piece of paper, that stamp, so I could line up the outline and make sure it was centered. Then I know when I put my heart in there, that stamp is exactly where I want it and it's going to be straight. I used some watermark ink and some white embossing powder, and I will just heat set that. Once I'm done, I will just bring in a dry cloth to remove the extra anti-static powder, and I will add this onto the base of my snow globe. Because I'm overlapping a little bit of that silver cardstock, it's sort of slick, I am using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I also used that when gluing onto acetate. So if you're struggling to put shaker cards together because of all the slick surfaces, that glue tends to work pretty well for me. Here I have just temporarily added a piece of white cardstock just at the base of the globe to make sure that I'm getting it straight when I go to score it. You could absolutely skip that, but I'm a little type A. So for me, I appreciate the extra help that that cardstock strip gave me. I scored it 3/4 of an inch from the top. I folded it back and added glue only to that flap, and that finishes up our card. I love that I left a little well at the bottom, so all those little shaker bits hide a little bit when it's totally open, but there's tons of movement when you go to shake it. I hope you'll give this a try. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.